This is the Rising Goddess Podcast, and I'm your host, Michelle Torrance. This is a space where when we start diving deep, we're talking spiritual, mental, and physical. We're getting real and connecting with ourselves and others in the most intimate ways. We'll be talking all things sacred sexual, relationship building, womb healing, connection, and connecting with and through our bodies, how to use our sexual and sensual energies to create, manifest, and heal our lives in our individual and collective ancient feminine lines, while intertwining our healing and connection with the divine masculine. We'll learn from amazing humans who take time and share their wisdom and sacred healing magic. Rising humans who are here in this world to be healers, teachers, guides, priestesses, warriors, shamans, and all divine sisters and brothers in rising. We'll get witchy, sassy, sexy, and saucy, talking all things that align us with our true nature and authentic selves, creating a community of divine feminine and masculine rising to be a massive part in this shift of world healing. So grab some green juice, light some cannabis, get your blankets, or sit by the fire. Let's rise up together. Catch you on the inside, dolls. Hello, my beautiful rising humans, and welcome to this next episode of the Rising Goddess Podcast. Today, you will be listening to a conversation between Caty, Pasternak, and I. Caty is amazing. I've been stalking Caty for so long. She is just truly a passionate, empowered, powerful, amazing goddess. And she has so much wisdom to share with us and with her experiences and everything. And so I'm really excited for you to listen to this episode. This episode is it's going to go into our entrepreneur series, and it will be actually one of the first episodes on there because I wanted to interview Caty to talk with her about really to reach out to entrepreneur women. But really everything that she does just encompasses and embodies all women, not just entrepreneurs. And so if you're not an entrepreneur, that doesn't mean this isn't for you. And that's why I wanted to make sure that I was really clear on that. But if you're not familiar with Caty, Caty Pasternak is a women's business and transformation coach who helps leaders embody new levels of evolution so they can create lives that turn their soul on. Through intuitive development, quantum physics, hypnotherapy, neuroscience, and esoteric foundations, she offers women an integrated experience that will allow their highest selves to truly land in their bodies to manifest their visions with grace and flow, not force and rigidity. And that is what we're all about here, right? With one foot in soul and one foot in swagger, Caty provides strategy and support to stretch women out of their comfort zones so they can earn more, love deeper, and really truly experience magic on the regular. Through her private mentorship, mastermind programs, iTunes podcast, which she is the host of the Sexy Soul Radio and iTunes podcast, and her YouTube channel, Caty is inspiring women to take messy and sexy action every day so they can amp up their growth game while having fun doing it. I'm telling you, she is my WCW almost all the time. She is just so passionate, like I said. So this is a fun conversation. We talk about all sorts of stuff, and I'm just really excited. So make sure you head on over to the Rising Goddess Facebook page and continue the conversation underneath this. Let's keep things going. What did you like? What did you not like? Did you put in the journal entry that we have there for you? So take a listen, have some fun, and I'll catch you on the next one. Later. All right. Hello, my beautiful humans. Welcome to the next Rising Goddess Podcast. And as always, I am fucking excited. Today we have Caty Pasternak on with us. And, this was actually going to be the start of the entrepreneur series that was within the Rising Goddess podcast show. But to be quite honest, Caty her whole embodiment is so much more than just for entrepreneurs. And so I really just am so excited to have her share everything. But I really want all of my entrepreneurs out there, my women entrepreneurs, to really take heed and listen to the conversation that we're having today, because what you can take away from her is really going to change your entire game in the business. So Caty, welcome. Thank you so much for being here.
Oh, thank you so much. I'm so excited.
Yeah. First question I love to ask all of my guests is, what do you love about being a human right now in this time and space?
I love the freedom that we're able to create for ourselves with our lifestyles. I think, I live from a place of adventure, and being able to create every day is something new and travel wherever I want to travel. And the ability that we have to create our lifestyles in reflection of our desire is just unreal. I'm so grateful for it. And that's what I'm really excited about.
I love that. And, you're so true. And it's so right for so many humans, especially if they allow themselves to actually step up into that experience. And I think that's where so many humans kind of fall right now. It's the allowing part of it, which is why I love talking. I'm so excited to talk with you about that, because allowing is right up into flow.
Mm.
So tell me a little bit about who was Caty before, as a younger human growing up. What did an event happen, or what event took place that kind of shifted into who the Caty is now that we're speaking to?
Oh, girl. That's a journey. In summary, I would say I was a very depressed and lonely child, and I masked that with being the class clown and with food. And that's kind of like my whole childhood, teenagehood of being really overweight, unhealthy, and feeling unloved. And that led me into developing multiple eating disorders when I got older and trying to lose weight and be obsessive. And I became anorexic and a binge eater, and I competed in bodybuilding, and I became a personal trainer. I did all of those things that were just really trying to get me away from myself and seeking external validation. And I got to a point in my life where I hit complete rock bottom, and just at the worst pain of my eating disorder, losing the love of my life, losing my job, losing my home, having to go live at home with my parents. It was one of those moments that was just like, what's going to give here? And the thing that I was brought to was meditation and spirituality, when I had no idea what that was even going to do for me. And it just led me on the path of unfolding. But it definitely came from a rock bottom. And I was by no means the most positive or enlightened person growing up in any way, shape, or form. So yeah, this has been created.
That's fantastic. I was going through, and I was reading some of your story about how you went and you found a book on, I think it was Buddhism or meditation, and you really just kind of lost yourself in that and allowed yourself to just kind of be taken, let the life of that experience live through you in that moment, to allow you to kind of shift and change into where you are, until at least the direction of where you are now.
Yeah. And I wish it was like so easy. And for everyone that's listening that are in the beginning stages of that, like this has been years of a journey of just like, yeah, I get the awareness, and then I totally lose it again. And then I get the awareness, and it's that journey. We all go through those ups and downs of it, but it's definitely a deep process of surrender, even through our own bullshit. Yeah.
Oh, let me tell you, and for all of our listeners out there, y'all know that I am like, for real. I tell everything when I'm going through changes, and just this morning, on this conversation, I had to go through a whole nother experience of releasing control. And like Caty said, it's not like you're all right. I'm awake. I'm aware. I know what's going on, and now life is fucking perfect. It's a constant growth and awareness, and I kind of visualize it as a spiral. And I think that that's so true. And in the beginning, when you are just starting out, there's going to be some times where you're going to feel like, am I fucking going crazy? What is happening? And there's going to be so many blissful moments, but it's going to be the shadow work and the diving deep and the realness with yourself. And Caty, that's what I'm really pulling from you, is that you are so real, not only with yourself, but with everybody, your clients, and everybody that you talk to on your podcast. First of all, Caty is the host, if you didn't listen to the intro, which I'm sure you did. She's the host of the Sexy Soul Radio podcast, and her intro gets stuck in my head all the time. I'm fucking bumping to it.
Everyone talks to me, they're like, where did you get the idea for that? I was like, that was just like, and it's so funny too, Michelle. I'm just glad that you mentioned that, because that came from a place of true, just like taking action, not having any desired outcome for that podcast, and being so silly and myself. And now like it gets stuck in everyone's head, and I'm not changing it. And I just thank you for acknowledging that, just because being real is the way to go.
Yeah, it really is, because there's so many times I know myself, I've lived with a facade my entire fucking life. I mean, I describe it as living in like the Rapunzel's tower, but it was just all the way down in the bottom is where I was. And, and so I had a front for every single experience and everything that came across. And so I find myself really attracted towards a lot of real people right now, honesty and truth. It's like you can see the light, you can feel the vibration. But that is something that I think is just really important, and especially right now. And I think we're starting to see that in a shift, and especially in the business world and the entrepreneur world. Do you find that you're seeing more entrepreneurs really kind of coming out and just really being real about it instead of just showing all the highlights throughout their life?
100%. I mean, there's going to be no other way to be successful and to sustain success other than authenticity. And I think that we're in that period right now where everyone that came into this space because they were sold on the promise of having the dream life and doing all these things is, getting a rude awakening to realize all of the inner work that needs to happen for you to really become successful in this, especially people building personal brands. And so it's a non-negotiable piece, but unfortunately it's not as easy for people to say, oh, I'm just going to be myself, because there's so much trauma and shit within themselves that they need to work through and clear. So that's a big piece of what I support people in doing, but absolutely that's a shift that's happening. It's non-negotiable, and you have to do it if you want to be successful.
Yeah. I absolutely believe that. My journey similar, my most recent journey, I've been an entrepreneur for about 20 years. I've run businesses in financial business and recruiting and headhunting. I also was a health and fitness coach. I started in the network marketing about 5 years ago, left that earlier this year. And I found myself, since I've shifted, but even more recently, I was still putting on a front. Like I still was holding myself back from being real, and maybe not putting on a front is so much to say, but just still holding back or not allowing myself to really be real, because I wasn't even going deeper and deeper into that. And so it does take the work, the shadow work. And I speak a lot about shadow work here on my podcast and in my community. And Teal Swan is somebody who I follow. I've been following her for a while, and she's real
Michelle,
deep.
I just interviewed her this morning.
Oh my gosh, shut the front door. She's on my big balls list to ask to interview.
Oh my God. That's so amazing. Synchronicity.
I love it. Oh my God, that is fantastic. She really is just amazing. And that I'm so grateful that you did that, because so many people, if they're not familiar with her, she really is a fantastic guide to shadow work. And
she's amazing. And she will trigger the fuck out of you. And I'm sorry, are we allowed to curse on here?
I've been fucking all fucking day. Absolutely. We're talking about being authentic, bitch. That's what we do.
Yes. Yes. And honestly, and I'm really glad that you mentioned Teal too, because this is a piece of us really stepping into our authenticity, because on the podcast, Teal just she speaks straight truth. Yeah. And there were so many moments in the podcast where my ego was super triggered because I felt like she was positioning me as being wrong, and I was wrong. she straight schooled me on so many things, and it was so funny for me to be in that experience, to be like, this is definitely someone that I've been really wanting to get on the show, and my ego is getting all tripped up in this conversation, but that is our work. It's about moving beyond that and being no, she was right, I was wrong, and I'm excited to share this even though I'm triggered about it.
Oh my God. Well, sister, I support you in all of the triggers, because those turn into activations, and that's what I love, because then it activates so much, and you're like, holy shit, then you're in the shower and you're like, oh my God, I had this fucking realization, or holy shit, I've been holding on to this money block since age 8.
Yes.
All of that. So I'm really excited. I can't wait to listen to that episode. So everybody, of course, we're going to have her contact information. Definitely go on. And again, and before I even go, if you're not following Caty already, what the fuck are you doing with your life right now? Because you need to fucking get on the fucking gravy train of awesomeness. There's so many things I want to talk to you about. First of all, I'm actually looking into the neuro-linguistic programming, coach programming, and with the timeline therapy practitioner and the hypnotherapist through the place that you went. Can you share a little bit about your experience and what drove you to get certified and just really focus on these things?
Yeah. It's definitely like divinely guided. I think a lot of people, when they start out in coaching, they look at like, oh, what should I get certified in? And what should I do? And da da da. And I definitely did not go down that route because I'd done so much work on myself and like, just through learning, through courses, through my own mentors. And so I started coaching without being certified.
Mm-hmm.
And the more that you coach and you do your own like experiential things and you just find out what it is that you're really passionate about and what you love supporting people with. And for me, that was the subconscious mind. That was just what was always driving everything that I was doing. I was fascinated by it. That's where my healing happened. And so over time, I've just wanted to become more of a master of that. And so neurolinguistic programming and hypnosis really deals directly with the subconscious. So I was drawn to that. And really, when I went to the training, it was not even just about my clients, but it was really about my own learning as well.
Mm-hmm.
And I just kind of let that drive me. And it's been a huge piece of the work that I do now. So I really love it. I think that understanding the overall context of how to work with the subconscious mind is more powerful than the specific modalities in general.
Mm-hmm.
We just have to know that there's this bigger piece of us and how to really open up that dialogue, how it's operating us, and have that understanding when we go into any kind of personal or business transformation.
I love that. And, the human body fascinates me as well as the energetic system. I mean, all of our chakra centers, the hormonal system, the chemicals. I mean, everything about us fascinates me because truly we're miraculous beings living in this time and space. And, Vaynerchuk says it all the time. 1 in 4 trillion, that you are a fucking human right now. What the fuck are you doing with your life? And
right.
it's exciting to be, at least in my perspective, to see so many people stepping up and wanting to take or getting curious about their unconscious and their subconscious. And I'm sure this has been around for way longer than before, obviously, I woke up to it. But I feel like there's like this rapid advancement right now. Like I do feel like we're on this verge of this high ascension. We're moving into 5D reality. We're really starting to think fourth dimensionally, Marty. And it's really exciting. And I think that this really goes into that. And for coaches out there, I know there's so many different types of coaches. I think one of the most important thing that Caty touched on is that she went into those trainings really not thinking about for her coaching business or for her clients, but really for herself. And that is the key, not only to business, but to life, is really going in and focusing on where you can really heal and do that. Because, I say this all the time, with you, by you healing, I can't even say it because I say it all the fucking time. To heal yourself, you're healing the collective. And it's fucking great. I want to talk to you a little bit about consumption versus creation and how that affects the energetic vibe or the energy of a person, whether in business or just in life general. What is your thoughts on consuming versus creation, and too much, too little, harmonize, balance?
Yeah. That's a huge, huge conversation. I love this conversation. It's something I really go in deep with people, especially entrepreneurs, because when we feel heavy and overwhelmed and stuck, it's really because we're consuming too much. And it's as simple as that for whatever it is. If you're stuck in your business or if you're stuck in just life, you're like, nothing's happening. I just imagine it like you just being curled up in a little ball and like watching TV and eating and listening to podcasts and just letting all of this external information continue to get heavier and heavier and heavier. And the way that you lighten your energetic load is by releasing that through creation, through activity, through movement of whatever type. If it's mental movement, if it's actually like you painting something, being creative, or moving your body, like we need to be the creative force, the one that's taking action to release that heaviness and to get ourselves into that state. And creativity, especially, so many people avoid this pillar of their life. And this is where your life force comes from. If you want to receive all the benefits of the universe and start to live in harmony with that flow, you need to be like that creative force by being the creator and by becoming the vessel for that inspiration to move through you. I talk to a lot of people who are like waiting for the insight or the download or like their mission, their message, their purpose. And it's like, source is not going to give that to you unless you are becoming the vessel to deliver it. So if you're sitting back in your business and being like, I'm not inspired to make content, I'm just going to sit here and wait for inspiration to come and hit me. Like, that's bullshit. That is absolute bullshit. That is you not being in your power. When you decide and you align yourself to being like, I am creating because I am living in service and I trust the flow is going to come, and you take that leap into service, that's when the inspiration comes. That's when the downloads come. And the more that you build that creative muscle by you showing up, the more embodied you are in your creative power. And that's when life takes off.
Yes, sister, take me to church. I tell you, I love it. And that brings up a good point. I was having a conversation with another friend. She's an entrepreneur, and the conversation and the topic of work comes up, and what really defines or describes work. And I think we're still in this linear hustle mode of work has to always be doing when work can actually be being. And so what is your thoughts on work itself? What is your personal definition or perspective on the word work? And how do you define hard work? Or do you find it as actually doing and always doing in the linear way? Or do you find being in the feminine flow as really a huge part of the entire definition of work as an entrepreneur?
Yeah. I think that it's interesting because the being element to me is where we are receiving the greatest ideas and the greatest inspirations and the revelations about ourselves. And it's a huge piece to sustaining success and well-being and creating that time. But the feminine energy to me is also movement. It is doing in the act of creating. And I think where a lot of people get tripped up is they're so focused on the expectation and the deadline and the outcome that they don't tap into the joy of doing. And that's really what, my work has been about. It's about prioritizing my creativity, my energy, my manifestation work, all of those more feminine-like things, and building the structure in that masculine sense, which I would call like quote unquote work, of getting the system set up and the execution and the commitment, and having both of those work in harmony with each other. So there is being work that's put out into the world, but the work is actually making an impact. The content is actually having an impact because it's coming from that place of inspiration. And I think a lot of what we do in entrepreneurship is we just focus like on the work and on the hustle, and we forget that we're blessed as fuck to be able to do this. And what we're doing right now, especially for people who are just beginning, you're building the ground floor of things. And yeah, sometimes that's not always going to feel great and there's going to be work, but you're doing work now so you can continue to create that life of freedom. With every new level of success, there's a new person that you can hire. There's a task that you can take off your plate. And it's kind of like we have to keep that momentum going and choosing our joy and following our zone of genius and letting that pull us to that top as we get through some of those tasks that we don't necessarily enjoy doing.
God, I love all of that. I totally resonate and agree with all of that. Absolutely. And for listeners, if you're not familiar with Zone of Genius, there's a book called The Big Leap by Gay Hendricks, which I highly recommend for every single human in this world. But especially if you're an entrepreneur, your zone of genius is really where you find the most pleasure in the experience that you're living. And that actually takes me on a thing, because what you were talking about with the creation and the life force, I work a lot with the sacral and root chakra, specifically with a lot of sexual shame release and really tapping into healing that and allowing the word pleasure to penetrate in both the sexual energy of our lives as well as everything else in our lives. And so I wanted to, this kind of leads me into my next question for you of, do you find that a healthy sexual energy or sexual expression of oneself translates into their business? And do you find a healthy business translate into sexual life? Do you find it all flows in together?
100%. Sexual energy is creative energy, but something that I will mention here too, it's that this isn't about sex.
Yes, thank you.
So not about sex. And speaking from my own personal experience, I've been single for a while, and I'm not that sexually active with people. It takes me like a very specific person if I'm going to engage in that. And honestly, that doesn't that doesn't keep me from being sexually expressed.
Exactly.
And I think that that's a huge piece for women to just like, you know, stop associating their sexuality with a male and start just doing sexual practices for themselves and expressing their femininity and doing all that. I think that in addition to just like awakening that sexual life force energy to move into creativity, it's so much about the way that we feel in our bodies as leaders, as creators. If we feel good in our bodies and we feel sexy in our skin, like that's a huge piece to success because it just exudes confidence. That's where women's power comes from. So it translates into so many different areas. But yeah, to answer your question, abso-fucking-lutely.
Yeah, I can listen to you talk all fucking day. I fucking love you. On your site, you have a fun giveaway, which we'll get into a little bit later, and I'd love for you to touch on that. But one thing that really has interested me, and I kind of associate it with Tony Robbins, is the reprogramming practices that you do. What can you take us on a little bit of what are some of the reprogramming practices that you do? I know this morning you were talking about your morning routine on your stories. I love jazz too. I'm a musician, so jazz is something that's always part of my day. So I love that you do that and you have your routine, which actually triggered my issue with structure this morning, which countered into control. So that was, you triggered me this morning. So it was a wonderful cycle of this, right? So can you share with us what are some reprogramming practices and define for people who may not fully understand that they are programmed and what reprogramming is actually for them?
Yeah, 100%. This is so huge. So basically, we're all creating our lives from the beliefs and the patterns and the paradigms that we're operating under. It's like the way that we view ourselves, our self-image, our thoughts and stories about money, our thoughts and stories about relationships, and just the way that we view the world. All of this is a program that was installed, created, and added upon when we were younger. So we all inherit that programming from our parents, and from the ages of 0 to 7 is when we get the bulk of that conditioning. And this can be things like, money doesn't grow on trees, or women, shouldn't love their bodies, and like all these different things, some good things, some bad things, but we just absorb them like a sponge. And then throughout our experience, both as children and as adults, based on these like emotionally triggering situations when we weren't seen or we weren't loved or we were rejected, all of those things just start to get added into our programming. The more emotional the experience was, the deeper it goes within our programming. So if you experience something that's creating a lot of shame when you were younger, this was my instance because I was bullied when I was younger. I just felt so much shame. And I was literally operating from a shameful programming. So it was like, if I would have the opportunity to be seen or to go on a date or to do anything, it was just like I was overridden with shame, and that would dictate all of my decisions and the way that I showed up. And it wasn't something that I was consciously choosing, like, oh, I'm going to feel shame now. It just came up like a program because that's how I created myself. And that's what I started to do habitually. So we're all programmed. We are all programmed. And a lot of the program is not serving us. And so many people try to make change in the conscious state of like, oh, I'm going to be motivated. I'm going to, think positively. I'm going to build my business. I'm going to create more money. And that's out of alignment with their deeper programming. And so changing that is essential to creating more success. And a huge piece of that programming is really the self-image that we have, the way that we view ourselves, because the way that we view ourselves subconsciously is how we are acting. That's dictating how we are acting, how we're showing up, what we're taking action on. If we have a very insecure perception of ourselves, or we think like we're not good enough and all of that, that's like playing small, that's how we continue to show up. So reprogramming is a practice of uncovering what is the program. And really, people try to do this consciously to be like, okay, what is my program? And you'll get some insight on that. But the way that you really get to the root of your programming and the cause of the programming is through deeper states like hypnosis and trance states. So we can get you out of your overthinking mind and get you into that state to observe the programming and then shift it. So really the clearing work is essential to reprogramming anything. This is why just affirmations by themselves don't work. So when you're in this state of trance and you're surfing through your subconscious, you actually get the opportunity to rewrite that story for yourself, rewrite a memory that created a negative program in your life. And your subconscious doesn't know the difference between what's real and what's imagined. So it literally just thinks that that experience is healed. And so a part of you becomes healed through that intentional work. For anyone that's done like an inner child visualization, you know what I'm talking about, but so we can be a little bit more specific with working with an individual. But basically we want to start to clear the emotional attachment to the old programming, the old stories, the old emotions, the old identity, and then begin reprogramming something new. This is where things like visualization and seeing yourself living in that confident light, in that abundant light, doing affirmations or incantations where you're getting your body involved and you're speaking new things, and you're writing affirmations and you're writing a vision and you're doing it repetitively time and time and time again, is how we reprogram things. And I think that a lot of people, you know, they get frustrated that it's not working, and there's different mechanics that we have to understand, that you need to get your feeling engaged with what you're doing. You need to do it repetitively, because that's what generates the program. That's how it was created. It was created through repetition and impact. And if you want to change it, you have to be doing the same things with impact and repetition. And it takes time. But reprogramming work is like that is what everyone should be focusing on that's been struggling in any area of their life. It's going deeper into their own reprogramming, because once you install a new program, that's when flow is created, because you're no longer resisting yourself. You're no longer fighting with the old program. You have a new program to support you. And that's where flow comes from.
Yes, that's so fantastic. And there's so many different ways to do these deprogramming or reprogramming experience, practices and activities, like she said. So in the end, we're going to have Caty share with us where you can connect with her to work with her. But it is so important. And I found myself over the last few weeks actually not working on my morning routine, not prioritizing my joy and my own flow. And I have found that I have become more insecure with my body, the way that I view myself, and all of these things. And so it does take time, and time is relative, everyone. And it doesn't matter how long it takes, because the fact that you're doing it, which brings us all the way back to falling in love with the process and the joyfulness of the process of the actual uncovering, because it can be a joyful and blissful experience, even though I describe it as like you're climbing up the thorns of the roses. And as soon as you get to the top, you're on that rose petal, once you really break through and find what it was that initial programming. So that's fantastic.
It's a beautiful metaphor.
Thank you. Visualizations is really big for me. My husband learned how to talk with me about a couple years ago, really, on how to talk with me to impact and help me understand things. And I realized that it's okay. I used to, all these rules we used to put on ourselves. I'd love to go into that with you, just because of my own personal experience. I just released a rule the other day that I couldn't do a specific workout because I had to go downstairs to use my pull-up bar. Now, how redonkulous is that rule, right? But that's the sabotage that we put upon ourselves because we're getting uncomfortable, right? We're like moving out. So what are your thoughts on rules? Share whatever you feel when you hear the word rules.
Yeah. So I think that, a lot of times when you mention self-sabotage, we kind of want to blame ourselves, and we're like, God, why am I keeping myself back? And why am I doing all this? Mm-hmm. But there's another perspective too, of just, you're doing something that you believe is taking you from joy. Mm-hmm. So when we try to stretch into something new and we have a negative association with that, for entrepreneurs, they can look at like their next level of business, and they might believe that it's going to take a lot of hard work to get there, and they're going to have to compromise on all of these things.
Sacrifice and stuff.
Right. Mm-hmm. Exactly. These are beliefs or rules. However we're looking at them, we're like, I have to do X, Y, Z in order to get there. And I don't want to do that. So this sucks. So there's a part of us that really is just trying to not only keep us safe, but to keep us happy. Mm-hmm. And so I think when we start to look at it like that, we just have to see, where is the rule or the belief robbing us from joy? And if our life purpose is going to be created through finding our joy, then we need to change the rules and we need to change the beliefs. And everyone is creating their own reality based on what they believe. If we believe that everything is going to be hard, it's going to be hard. If we believe life's a struggle, it's going to be a struggle. So it's kind of like we get to really actually tangibly create our own reality by deciding what are our rules going to be? What are the rules that are going to make us feel empowered and joyful?
I love that. And I wrote that down. And for listeners, this is a great question for a journal prompt. What rule or belief do you have that is robbing you from joy? That's such a great prompt. So I encourage everybody out there to really dive into that. And that'll be part of your reprogramming practice that you're doing. And share with us on the Rising Goddess page underneath this episode when we share it, because I'd really love to keep that conversation going and just kind of hear where you're at on that. So let's talk a little bit about quantum leaps, quantum physics. I love all of this. I think it's so great. And I love the show from back in the day, but I think people need to understand the difference and like what is a quantum leap and how can they actually access this field to really make massive shifts in not only their life, but massive impact in the world.
Yeah. So basically my working definition of a quantum leap is where you kind of knock your own socks off. And what you create, there's no doubt in your mind that you created that through an energetic process. Like there's no way that your human self could have been able to make that amount of change in the amount of time that you were to do that. And so, when I talk about this, I talk about my personal story of when I first created my business and when I was getting in the stages of leaving my corporate job and going into this. And whatever I do, I always like play big and go full out with it. And I really took that time to not worry about online marketing and physical shit. And I really dove deep into creating in the quantum field. And so the quantum field is essentially the field of oneness where we are not identified with the body and with the thought. And the way that we access that is through deeper states of accelerated meditation. Mm-hmm. And so this has been one of my core practices in not only my own life, but what I teach people is to get to these really altered states of consciousness where you're not in a sleep, you are in a higher frequency plane where you're not as identified with the self and you are in this black hole of just like quantum creation. And when you're in this place, you get to create, it's real. It feels so real. And basically what I would do is I would just visualize everything that I wanted to manifest in my life. And I would get super engaged with it, emotionally involved, like we all know. And after my visualization, I would spend my entire day doing this reprogramming work. And I went all in on it. So writing affirmations of like, I'm so happy and grateful now that I'm earning like XYZ and I'm attracting all of these clients to me and I'm like running this dream business. And I would listen to affirmations of me speaking that like whenever I had free time working my corporate job. And I committed to to mastering my inner world before anything changed externally. And that's what quantum leaping is about. It's about understanding that like you're not going to see the physical manifestation until you anchor it in internally and you hold it and you believe it and you trust that this is the process. And within 1 month of doing that, I went from making like $400 a month as a coach to making 19 grand a month as a coach. That amazing. Shit is a quantum fucking leap. And that was one of those moments where I was like, holy shit. Like that was like when I truly felt my power. I was like, this is no marketing coach in the world is going to be able to tell you how to do that. That was an energetic game. And that's what I'm all about now is creating it in that field because that shit works.
Fuck yes, it does. I myself had an experience too, and I think it was more on the creation side with my guide that I released recently because it was like my entire experience. I mean, even my look changed, the physical expression of my humanness changed, and it's just I think it's so exciting, and when people get curious about these things and understand, and this is something I like to share with people, fear and excitement are the exact same frequency and emotion. It's just your perspective on it and where are you looking at it and what is going on. Do you resonate? Does that sound like to you something that is the same? Because for me, I find that if I'm looking at an experience and I'm looking at it from a place of lack or fear, it's this huge, terrible, monster. But then if I shift it into excitement and like, holy shit, what could possibly happen now? Then it turns into this like scavenger hunt, or this game for me to play.
Absolutely. And
Yeah.
I mean, that's like, I mean, focused consciousness is what creates our world. So I think in the opportunity of making a leap into something new, we have the option to either focus on everything that could go wrong, and so we produce fear, or we focus on everything that could go right and we produce excitement. But it's really just on how much, what you're putting your own flashlight on. If you're putting your light on everything you don't want to happen, because if you do that, you're going to create that. And when you focus your consciousness and light on the opportunity and the possibility, that's what you create. But this is a lifelong practice of rewiring ourselves to stop focusing on what could go wrong, because that's how we exist. So many people live with anxiety, thinking it's normal. And what they've made normal is focusing on everything they don't want in life. Focusing on everything that sucks. And that's what anxiety, why you're feeling anxious. Your soul is literally like, hey, this doesn't feel good. Stop thinking like this, dumbass. Like, start to think about what's good, what you want, and then you feel better. But we've been so programmed to think negatively that we have to be so intentional about reshifting our focus back to what it is that we want.
This reminds me of, I listen to a lot of Rampages from Abraham Hicks.
I love them.
I have a day when I decided to actually transition and actually take my leap of faith. I call that day Cookie Apocalypse. And all I did was eat cookies and listen to Abraham, trying to stay in alignment all fucking day. And I was crying throughout the entire time. So, but that reminds me of one of the Rampages that I listened to. And she starts it out with, the better you feel, the more you allow, you could not be more deserving. And it's such, it just tickles me all over when I say that, and when I feel it, when I tap into that. And I think so many people, which is where I think I know where my work comes from, is because so many people are afraid to feel. They're afraid to allow themselves to desire, to actually want something. And they feel that if they actually want something and they desire something, then it's a bad thing. And then it turns, into fear. And then, all of these other things could be activated. And so I fully support that, everything that Caty's talking about, listeners out there, really just tune into it, tap into it, and then turn on into it. And you're going to watch your whole existence start to shift. So I'm excited. Now, I'd love to talk about the 4 pillars of feminine leadership. This is just, I got my thing yesterday. So I would love for you to share a little bit about that, because I want people to go to your site and grab that for them to really dive into that. But just give us some basic summary of what it is and how you came up with the 4 pillars.
Yeah. Oh, thank you so much. This was a beautiful creative birthing project for me, as everything is. And I think that, what I realized in my own journey and the work that I do with entrepreneurs and coaches is that there's a real gap in feminine leadership and feminine entrepreneurship. And I think that we see that, but in terms of being like, you should just flow into everything and be gentle with yourself and like, let this all come. And that's not what I'm about at all. Like, I am about fierce feminine leadership, heart-centered leadership, but getting shit done and being embodied in our power as activators. And it's a different perspective. And it's talking a lot more about our energy and our intuition more than the external strategy. I love external strategy. I teach external strategy. My background's in marketing, but without the energy and intuition behind what we're doing, it doesn't matter. So the 4 pillars of fierce feminine leadership are embodiment, creativity, manifestation, and energetic mastery. And so we talked a little bit about creativity in this kind of ratio, but I think it's so important for people to understand that if they don't feel creatively inspired by what they're doing, they need to change that. Because your creativity is your power, it's your message, it's your gift in this world. And until you start prioritizing your creative expression and literally just opening up the channel to your own intuition for your creative ideas, instead of looking outside of yourself and being like, oh my God, everyone's doing this and everyone's writing the same thing. Like, no, Your creativity comes from you, and it needs to be prioritized in you opening up your own channel. Creativity is huge. Embodiment of your work is so powerful. Whatever it is that you're doing, you're inherently leading some kind of mission. And so many people, I think they have a soul knowing that they're meant to be doing this thing. Like they're meant to be, doing this podcast or being this coach or whatever, being a blogger, whatever. But they're lacking confidence. They don't embody their work. They're not like in it. They're not embodying leadership. And until you embody that sense of leadership, people are not going to respond to you. They're not going to buy from you because you're not like vibrating in harmony with that. So it's a huge piece of actually landing our work in our bodies and embodying confidence and feeling good in our body, feeling sexy in our skin, and letting that flow move through the body. That's the embodiment. Manifestation, what we've been talking about, it's really about understanding how to reprogram your subconscious mind and create in this quantum field so you're not working against yourself. When you say you have a vision to make 10K a month, and there's a program operating you that's saying, no, you'll never be able to make more than 3K, like you're not going to be able to manifest it. So it's being able to work with those things to intentionally create that energy, trusting source to grant you this if you master your ability to create it. And then the energetic mastery, which is what women really need to prioritize more than anything. It's about creating a deep sense of joy, fulfillment, activation, and love within our days, within our flow, creating a schedule, a workflow that works for us instead of us working for it, and making our business be an added component to our lifestyle instead of the other way around, and really creating our lifestyle first, making sure that we feel so full that we maximize our production times when things are going good, whatever stage it is in our cycle that we are in. We have to know how to maximize that flow and when we need to rest and when we need to harvest, and really start to understand our own energy in order to become more successful. So those are the 4 pillars. I think that those things aren't talked about enough in enough depth. And that's why I wanted to really create that guide, just to dive deep into those, to get people to start prioritizing those things first.
Yes. Oh my gosh. Every single thing you said is absolutely true. And you touched on, first of all, a couple of words, which I'll bring up in a second, but you touched on where we are in our flow. And that's really what I work with women on too, is I created something for women, for especially women entrepreneurs, to really tap into their period business. Cycle into your success is what it's called. And
I love that.
Thank you. And it's really tuning into your cycle, whether you are still having a period or you are in menopause or you've had a hysterectomy or not, the energy is still flowing there, so you can tap into that energy. But really learning your body, your flow, your menstrual flow, and then connecting it with the phases of the moon, and then what business action and personal action to take during that, and cross-referencing it. And I think it's so important that, and it goes along with you with the self-mastery, with what you're talking about, with the embodiment, embodying what it is that you are wanting to present to the world, because you are the physical manifestation of what it is that you are desiring to make an impact with. And so those are fantastic. So when Caty gives us her information, make sure you go to her site and download this and get this from her, and make sure you subscribe to her stuff, because you're just going to be filled with so much value and you're going to learn so much. There's one word that I was kind of geeking out because you kept saying it on your stories too, and you say it on here, and I am all about this word of harmony versus balance. Can you share a little with us what your feeling on harmony versus balance is?
Yeah, I think it's so funny because balance is like, when you think about balance, it's not sustainable. It's just, you think of I think of myself like in a tree pose in a yoga class. Like, I know that my ass is not going to be staying in that tree pose for long, right? For more than like a minute. So it's like, I feel like when we talk about balance, we're setting ourselves up for failure, because we know that balance is not sustainable. And so it doesn't really work that way. And for me, harmony is about really knowing ourselves, knowing our energy, and being able to flow into those different seasons and embrace where we are in that journey. And I think that's maximizing where we are when we are in that, really high state, and being able to soften and allow ourselves to rest and to get nourishment. And this is not just in our energy, but it's in how we're doing everything. If we notice that we're way too far in that masculine and that pushing expectation goal setting, how do we get ourselves back to the joy of what we're creating and what we're doing in that heart-centered place. It's really just observing when we feel too intense of anything and being able to get ourselves back into that flow. And I think that harmony just creates a deeper sense of self-trust than balance does. It's like we're actually working with ourselves versus working against ourselves.
Yes, instead of trying to control everything, right? That's what I feel balance is
Yes.
trying to control something. And there's a book I read years ago called Harmonic Wealth. I'm not sure it's a great book, but he talks about, he's one of the speakers in The Secret. And so I forgot his name. I'll find that.
Which one?
What's his name? Gosh, now it's going to be
John Assaraf.
Oh, maybe. I see his face. He's tan. It's got
John Assaraf.
It might be.
He's like, is he like good looking, kind of like older guy, good looking?
Yeah.
Okay, it's definitely John Assaraf. Yeah.
All right, yeah. Definitely check out that book, Harmonic Wealth, because he really taps into the different pillars of our life. And sometimes in our life, we need to, how balance is bullshit, and it has to be harmonized, because sometimes we'll be focusing in our relationship more than our work and our, physical or something. And other times we'll be focusing on our business more than our relationship in this. And that's just the way it has to go. And if we try to balance it all out, it's stagnant, it's stale, and it doesn't move. And we're in a constant state of motion. So I definitely recommend that book for everyone out there. And when you were talking, I just kept hearing, I'm a tarot reader and I channel a lot. I clairaudient. And so I just kept hearing Queen of Swords. So right now your energy is really Queen of Swords, especially when you were talking about your fierce feminine leadership. And I'm not sure if you're familiar with the Queen of Swords energy or not.
No, it's so, oh my God, this is just so funny. This whole this whole interview, because I actually just created this podcast series that I'm going to be launching in probably like a month of feminine archetypes. And I started with the Queen because the Queen has been something that I've been like channeling in my vision for the last like month or 2 months. So it's so funny. I really it's just amazing. I just love reflections.
I think it's fantastic. I love synchronicities too. Everything happened. And it's funny that we had to have you switch over. We were going to talk yesterday, and then we had to switch you over to today, and everything happens for a reason. I encourage you to research the Queen of Swords. And you can go to Biddy website or Keen or Trusted Tarot. I mean, there's so many different websites to really research and get different perspectives and stuff like that. But it does make sense then that the Queen of Swords was just pulling through, because I wrote it down right here.
Oh my God, I'm so excited, Michelle. I love it. I love like living in this like magical existence. I appreciate you so much.
Oh my gosh, thank you. I appreciate you. And it's so funny. My favorite GIF is Shia going magic. That's my so everything is magical right now.
Yes.
Okay, so we are getting close to the end. So I do have a couple of fun questions that I like to ask people at the very end. But before we get there, let's share with everybody where they can find you, how they can work with you, and what passion project are you working on right now that is serving not only you, but the collective as well.
Oh my God. So many things. So you can find me at catypasternak.com. Instagram is probably my favorite social space, and that's just at Caty Pasternak, CATY. Like you mentioned, I'm on Sexy Soul Radio. And the way that people can work with me, I work with both entrepreneurs privately in building and expanding their businesses. But I also have a mastermind that's for female entrepreneurs and just other females that are really looking to dive deep into personal transformation work. And that's my Sexy Soul Masterclass program. That's like one of my high level masterminds that I just love. It goes deep into all this work that we're talking about with subconscious transformation, like high self-integration, money mindset, and really creating a life that you love. So you can learn more about that on my website. It's one of my big babies. And a new creative project that I'm working on, which it's like so exciting. I'm actually traveling to Maui next week to start working on it with a fellow soul sister. And this is actually going to be geared towards entrepreneurs who need to create more effective content. And I'm so excited. I'm not going to share like too much about it, but it's literally going to be like the thing for people who need to build a business based on their content, which is pretty much every entrepreneur now. And I think that it's a huge gap in the industry that we know that we need to be on Facebook Lives and we know that we need to be doing all these things, but what should we actually be doing? How do we get our energy behind it and maximize creative content? So that's a project that I'm so excited. It's going to rock the socks off everyone that consumes it. So stay tuned for that, because that's really exciting.
Oh my God. I just got this volcano. Well, first of all, you said Miami, but then it was like this visual of this volcano blowing. When I feel like something massive is about to blow up, I get that visual from that fucking movie, where they're in Yellowstone, and they're going and they're trying to leave and the whole Yellowstone blows up. Woody Harrelson, I can't believe I keep forgetting the fucking name of the movie, but Woody Harrelson's in it, but the entire thing just blows up like this huge, massive energy of fire, awesome, intense magnetism of awesome. So that's what I'm seeing with this, and I can feel your energy with it. So everybody stay tuned for that, especially all of you entrepreneurs, because that shit's going to be the bomb.
Yes. Thank you, girl.
Yes. Okay. So now let's just get into just a couple little fun random questions just cause that's what I like to do.
Yes.
What is your sign?
Cancer.
Do you know your moon and rising sign?
My moon is in Aquarius and my rising's in Libra.
Ooh. Okay. Yeah. I love that. What was the last thing you looked up on Google?
Ooh, that's super interesting. I don't know. I'm almost about to pull up my Google account right now. Honestly, I've been looking. No, I know exactly what it was. It was Vegan Cafe in Venice.
Oh my gosh.
Just because I'm here and I'm meeting my client for lunch. So I'm like, where are we going?
Yeah, that's fantastic. We have Cafe Yum out here, I'm up here in Eugene, Oregon. So I'm not too far down there from you. What spiritual book or text or audio are you really tapping into right now?
You know what's so funny? I go back to staples all the time. I'm really much less about getting new books and going back to old books. And two of my all-time favorites, which I'm rediving into now, are The Power of Intention by Wayne Dyer and The Power of Now, Eckhart Tolle. And those, every time I go back to each of those, there's a new lesson, there's a new layer for me. And so I'm currently in both of those right now.
I love that. I'm going to the library this week. So I've got a list of all the books I'm getting. Yes. What song, whether it's right now or whatever, what kind of song or music embodies who Caty is right now?
It's so funny because it's it doesn't change, but honestly, Drake, Controlla, that is my fucking jam. And Michelle, that has been my jam since it came out. And it's so funny as I evolve and change and transform, I'm called to different music and different things. I love jazz. I love listening to Beethoven lately. I'm just all over the place. But at the end of the day, at the core of who I am a ghetto chick, and I love Drake, and I love anything that makes me feel sexy and ratchet and any of those feelings. And Drake is my man. That is who I am.
Oh my God. We are soul sisters. Cause I just, I love it. I'm thinking about when I'm back in the day and I'm sitting on my steps with peanuts, smoking a Thai stick. So, that is what I'm talking about. And that is really it. Caty, we spent the whole hour with each other, and I knew that it was going to happen because your energy is just so amazing. And the world is just so special and lucky and grateful to have you show up as you in this world. So thank you for your time, and thank you for the work that you do on you, because all of the work that you are doing on you is really impacting the collective, and people are rising and waking up, and it's just so special and exciting and magical. So thank you for joining me today.
Michelle, thank you so much. This was literally my favorite interview of all time. You're absolutely amazing. And I just really thank you for the work that you do. You're incredible.
Oh my gosh, thank you. Oh, now I'm going to go and I'm going to have a dance party in my kitchen. Let me get some old Dre and some Snoop up there.
Yes.
So thank you. So everybody who's listening, definitely go follow Caty. You're going to change your life. Go to her website, get your 4 pillars of fierce feminine leadership. Keep an eye out for her new stuff going on. And we'll just catch you on the next one. Later.